This is a PowerPoint presentation that I gave in 2002 to the South Central Wisconsin Division of the National Model Railroad Association of a historical study that I did in the early 1980s for the Soo Line Historical Society and their magazine, The Sioux, and it was published in 1986. It's a part of a railroad that ran in northwestern Wisconsin, and because I have been a member of the Soo Line Historical Society for 30 years and I'm a Soo Line modeler, it was kind of a natural that I do a study on a small line that I modeled. Let's take a look at the original Minneapolis-St. Paul Sault Ste. Marie, and we'll zoom in on the line that was built that was called the Blueberry Line, and that's the purpose of my study. Originally it was supposed to run from Menomonie to Ashland, Wisconsin, but ran up through Barron from Ridgeland, Cameron, Rice Lake, up through Birchwood, Edgewater, and terminated at the Lakota Indian Reservation in Reserve. Originally it was supposed to run from Menomonie to Ashland to serve the largest lumber company in the world in the 1870s, Knapp Stout & Company, located here in Menomonie. Here's a couple passes. Actually, the railroad ran from 1893 to 1899 before it was absorbed by the Soo Line and was operated as a branch line after that point. Early on, running a couple of trains a day as these schedules attest. And the Sioux actually built the branch lines north and south out of Rice Lake, and then over the next 60 years abandoned the sections. Originally the 6.2 mile branch started in Cameron and ran up to Rice Lake, where it crossed the Omaha line and paralleled it for the first 6.2 miles, terminating in Rice Lake and then skirting around the south end of the lake. In 1980 I took these shots showing the actual switch and some of the tracks still in the ground for the northern branch lines. This is the only shot of a Blueberry Line engine for the RLD&M. After the Soo Line absorbed it, the Soo Line would assign some 440s to the site, most commonly this number 45, which appears a lot. This is at Rice Lake. Number 18. It's because of the light rail that they use the 440s. In 1940s they had a washout and they put heavier rail on the line, and they were able to use a little bit heavier locomotives. Here's the engine crew at Ridgeland. The fellow in the cab there is Claude Cunningham, engineer from 1913 to 1939. Here's a shot of the train, the Blueberry train at Cameron Junction. A substantial tower-like depot there. It served both the Omaha and the Soo Line. Here's a shot taken by Russ Porter in color, giving you seeing that it's the northwestern colors there. Here's the depot at Rice Lake. It's taken in 1970 by Larry Easton. Northward, the branch line went up through Mycona. Here's a shot about 1915 at the Mycona Depot, small third-class affair. This was an election day in the early 1900s. At Edgewater, passing sighting, they also had a water tank and a windmill there. And when I came through the area in 1980 doing my research on it, found that there still was a substantial portion of the windmill still standing. In Birchwood it paralleled the Omaha. There were two depots in town. Here's the Sioux depot at that time in Birchwood. And then north of Birchwood they ran parallel across the Red Cedar River and ran to their separate locations, where the Sioux ran up to Reserve, Wisconsin, where there was a log pond. That was a primary industry up there. Here's 1908 at Barron, Wisconsin, which was on the Soo Line, Maine. Shot from the other side. And again, when I was doing my research in 1980, this is what the depot looked like. It has been restored on spot, so you can see it. On the west end of Barron, there was a Y heading down to Ridgeland, first going through the small podunk of Hillsdale. Not much of a depot here. Then through Dallas, and Dallas just had a passing sighting. That was a popular place to take photos. You can see the short trains that were run, a few cars, and then a combine instead of a caboose. This is what the depot looked like in 1957. And then, once again, what it looked like at abandonment time in 1962. It did look like this in 1980, still standing, and it is still standing near Hillsdale. It has been moved. At the end of the line on the southern branch, there was a Y at Ridgeland. The depot there didn't seem to be kept up as well as the one in Dallas. This is what it looked like in the late 50s. You can see part of the Y on the front here. In 1980, it was on its last legs. Some of the mainline trains were also called the Blueberry, as this one was in later years. Here's a Consolidation located on tracks at Dallas. In later years, many fan trips were held on the line, including this one with 2718 and the famous 2719, which came down on Ridgeland in 1959. Here it is just before it made the turn on the Y at Ridgeland. And in later years, diesels ran on the line. Here's an RS1 at Hillsdale, and the last train running on this branch line in 1962 before the rails and the ties were taken up. The 6.2 mile branch line between Rice Lake and Cameron was used up until about 10 years ago. I'd like to thank Larry Easton and members of the Soo Line Historical Society when I did this original research in the early 1980s. Look for my modeling portion of this. Search for RLD&M on YouTube. I'm Bob Wondrock.